Hi, and welcome back to the Save It for Parts channel. Today, I'm building a tank. Oh wait, I already made that joke in the short promo for this video. So what I'm actually working on is this thing. It's a tracked wheelchair lift, and it is intended to climb stairs. So if you have an old building with no elevator, and you want to get a wheelchair up and down the stairs, you load it onto this thing with the person on board, and it tanks its way up the stairs and supposedly auto levels and whatnot. Now, I got this from work, and getting it home was a little bit of an adventure in itself. Here at work, we've got a few rooms full of junk, and one of them includes this wheelchair lift. I think we picked it up a while ago, hoping to use it for some buildings that don't have elevators, and it's just not very useful. We've tried donating it, and nobody seems to want it. So, as usual with unwanted junk at work, I end up with it. I've left it charging for a while to see if I can drive it, and meanwhile I need to unbury it from some of the stuff that's piled up on top. So it does seem like it turns on. I can't get anything to actually operate though. I don't know if it's broken or if there's a safety interlock that I'm not using or what's going on here. It does have some caster wheels under it, so you can push it around by hand. Although now I'm running into kind of an unexpected problem. The funny thing about this storage room is it used to be a bigger room, and we split it at half at some point, and I guess we never actually measured to see if the front door was the same width as the back door. So now we've got stuff stored in here that doesn't fit out of the room anymore. I'm going to have to disassemble some things. Definitely have to disassemble part of the track unit, and it looks like I'm going to have to disassemble part of the door as well. Alright, so now that we've got the thing home, it's time to test it out. I didn't have any luck with the battery pack before. I left it charging for a while, nothing happened. Brought it home, tried to charge it some more, and now the charge controller just doesn't do anything. So I've burned something out on this, and I suspect that this antique battery pack is just no good anymore. Fortunately, it's just 24 volts, so I can just take 2 car batteries and stick them on there. And I even have 2 car batteries over here, although I guess technically these are tractor batteries. These are left over from my electric train project. I used to have a third one. I don't remember where it went. I think it's in with one of my boats now. Well, something's working. The actual track forward and reverse doesn't seem to work, but the up-down works. Alright, I've once again resorted to drastic measures of reading the manual. So it seems like it has to be fully tilted before it'll actually move. So it's not an auto leveling system. You have to actually tilt it back yourself, and then it'll drive up and down the stairs. Alright, it seems like everything works. Unfortunately, it's not a very useful device. It seems really silly to have to tilt it all the way up before you can move it, and it seems really uncomfortable for whoever's riding it to have to be tilted back. It also doesn't have independent tread control. You have to push both of these buttons for it to move forward or back, and then you select forward or back with this thing. So it's really inconvenient to steer. If you're going up a multi-flight stairway with a turn in the middle, you have to tilt it up, drive up the first flight or half flight, put it back down, spin it around on the caster wheels, tilt it back up. It's going to take you all day to get up a typical office building stairway. So I can see why nobody wanted it when we tried to donate this to some accessibility groups. It's just not a useful gadget for what it was intended for. Fortunately, I think I can hack it apart and make it into something a little better. I can make some kind of little bulldozer or even a dump bed rig with this thing, and that could be potentially useful like out at Sandland. However, these are rubber treads. These wouldn't really last very long in industrial use or mining use like we're doing, and I think all the little motors and things would just get full of sand and wear out. So we're just going to make it into a novelty tank instead. Maybe I'll use the actuator here to raise and lower a potato gun barrel. Otherwise, I might steal it and use it to move my satellite dish around. I'd also like to make it faster. I think those 2 drive motors are 12 volts each, but it's got 24 volts on board, so if I double the voltage, well, it should go twice as fast, or I should burn up the motors twice as fast. if the whole tank thing doesn't work out, at least I've got an all-terrain skateboard. It is still really slow though. We're gonna have to speed this up in the video so it looks cooler. Alright, I have established that the tank chassis, treads, and motor all work the way they're supposed to, although when I'm not cheating with the video speed, they are incredibly slow. We're going to have these tracks work independently so it can steer. So we're going to have to figure out how to disable or get rid of this linkage. And I think we're going to need some relays instead of my redneck wired together switches here. I've started salvaging relays and parts out of the original control brain. I don't think there's an actual motor speed controller in here. It's basically just a 24 to 12 volt converter, some relays, and whatever these are. So I'm mostly going to work with the original parts if possible. I do have some other fun gadgets I can throw in there. And then I've got another drawer of dumpster dived industrial automation stuff, 24 volt relays, switches, fuses, all kinds of junk. I can use some of this if I need to. Alright, we've got the drive system done. I'm not quite sure if I'm happy with how big the wires are. I think I saw a little magic smoke coming out, so we may have to beef up the gauge of the wires in there. But it works, it drives, it's still pretty slow on 12 volt. I'm still going back and forth about whether I want to push 24 volt through there or stick with 12. There's absolutely no markings on the motors, so there's no way to know what they are and find a 24 volt replacement. So what's next for our tank? Are we going to do the armor or the armament? That's right, armament's way more fun. So what are we going to arm this thing with? We've got the propane potato cannon, we've got the pump action air pressure cannon, and we've got all the attachments for the propane cannon. We've got that rocket thing that never worked right. We've got the old hairspray cannon hiding behind a kayak over here. And then we've got this monstrosity. So this thing is frankly hideous. This is my first pneumatic potato cannon. It's all cobbled together, it's largely made out of duct tape, and I think this is a good candidate for creative reuse. Here at the Save It for Parts channel, we don't want to actually buy anything for these projects. We want to rip apart old junk, we want to dumpster dive stuff, and we want to reuse whatever we have lying around. So we're going to take the ugly air pressure cannon, rip it apart, and retrofit it into the tank. I guess before we start destroying it, we could go outside and throw some potatoes with it one last time. Alright, I couldn't find a potato, so that was actually a rotten onion, but basically the same thing. Let's turn this into a tank cannon. While we wait for the PVC cement to set up on that thing, we're gonna go with some secondary armament. I found this on the side of the road during a scrap day, and it actually works just fine. I don't have a tank, but it has this little adapter thing that lets it use these old school CO2 cartridges, so you can get at least a couple paintballs out of one of these guys. Okay, slight electrical fire now. Definitely time to beef up those wires. Alright, so despite my inherently safe shirt, you might be surprised to know that this tank isn't very safe at all. As you can see, I've got all my sketchy wiring basically right there in my lap, and I've got the pressurized potato cannon right there in my lap. It's such a small tank, there's really nowhere else to put anything. You might have noticed with the cannon tests, I'm not shooting it at very high pressure. I'm only going to about 40-50 psi. I'm still tweaking the redesign of this cannon. I've gone with a bolt action mechanism so I can load it from within the tank rather than the old muzzleloader design of most potato cannons. But I'm not actually sure how much pressure that will handle, so I'm trying to be a little more careful with that for now. Now I should also note that this tank project has nothing to do with current world events or conflicts. I was already working on this, it's just something that I'm kind of filming at the moment, and I'd like to get it done so I can kind of get it out of my way. It's taking up a lot of garage space right now. Alright, so the potato cannon on this thing works great. Unfortunately, my dumpster paintball shooter has jammed. I think I see a solution to this problem. Alright, well that certainly solved the paintball problem. This thing really is ridiculously impractical. I feel like an action figure crammed into a plastic toy when I'm riding around in it. So far we've just been trying it on the driveway. Let's see if it can go off-road and still climb some stairs. That went up. I think it might be a little top heavy. Alright, turns out it no longer climbs stairs. I think my big fat rear end is a little too top heavy for it. So I've actually broken part of my shell there. No major damage. One of my switches popped out, but I think that's just because I used the cheap tape there. Otherwise it's fine. And it only causes some minor lawn damage. I can live with that. I don't know, that's typical wear and tear on your normal American lawn. Alright, so aside from our minor crash and the tendency to jam paintballs, I'd say the spud tank is a complete success. It drives, it shoots, it does everything I wanted it to do, and it has no practical purpose whatsoever. It's just a giant toy. So I may or may not do anything else with this. Throw a comment down below if you have any ideas for it. I do have the potato howitzer, so we could do some wargaming. But high-speed potatoes are actually pretty dangerous for everywhere except behind the cannon, and sometimes even then is dangerous. So I'm pretty ADHD, I may or may not come back to this. We might do some other things with it, or we might hoard it in the garage along with all the other junk in here. Make sure to check out my other potato cannon videos, the howitzer, the grappling hook launcher, the drone catcher, all that stuff, and stay tuned to see what we come up with in the future. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.